And they said, you rule, the council. No, not me. It's the my little Blackberry has been working. They got hooked up now. My new calendar on paper, so I can look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll call the special meeting for the Executive Finance Committee to order at 1:15. And David, would you give us the invocation, please?
We'll all bow. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day and for bringing us together to try to help the Cherokee people here with their budget, and hope that we can pass them a good one. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for being with each and every person here, council, administration, and the people that are here together with the budget. We really appreciate would you be with each and every one of us as we pass through this day, In Jesus Christ's name we pray, amen.
Roll call.
Jack Baker,
Here.
Carol Callan Watts, Bill Angren,
Here.
Bill John Baker,
Here.
Dinah Glory Jordan, Joe Crittenden, Meredith Fraley, Don Garvin, Chuck Hoskin Jr., Brad Cobb, Julia Coates, Chris Stokes, Jody Fishinghawk, Harley Buzzard, David Thornton, Curtis Snell, Janelle Fulbright.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Today we're beginning our budget hearings with the administration presenting their review of the budget, our treasurer, Kelly Catcher, and I would respectfully ask that we not make any motions to amend the budget until the legislative review by Doug, which should start tomorrow. Okay. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, if we just turn the lights.
Yes.
For that light.
I just want to say it's a privilege to be here to present the Principal Chief's 2008 proposed budget. I'm going to go through a high-level review of the budget, and then, time permitting, I'm going to hit some of the highlights for each of the service groups. And particularly what I want to focus on is some of the balanced scorecard measures, which is what we use in administration to evaluate whether we're putting the money to the right place to have the best impact. When we begin our budget process, we always remind ourselves of the Declaration of Design Purpose, the mission and vision statement. This has been the same for the last 8 years, and we put a big emphasis on that, but mainly on our strategic initiatives, which is the communities, jobs, and language. The Strategic Budget Committee, which is a group that was formed in 2003 to begin to review all discretionary funding to make sure that we come up with plans to try to put that funding to the best use. As with any process, it's evolved over the last 4 years. It started as pretty much a competitive process. When we calculated our carryover in March or April, we would invite the groups to submit proposals that fit the strategic initiatives, and those proposals were competing against each other. For the 2008 budget, that process has evolved to hopefully a little bit better place. This year, all of the strategic budget proposals were reviewed by all of the group leaders, and the intent was to try to achieve a consensus from all of the people that these new initiatives are really aligning with our strategic initiatives of communities, jobs, and language. The other part of the process that's changed somewhat is more teamwork between the different areas. There's a lot of overlap between health, human services, community services, and when they get together and put a proposal together, you're going to have a better impact. Some of the assumptions that we used when we started putting this budget together, and this has been the same for the last several years, flatline or reduced federal funding. We've seen a trend over the last 4 or 5 years where our federal funding has become pretty static, other than maybe some special projects. Sometimes you see a little peak with roads programs that get approved or special grant funding that we get. But the overall trend is flatline. Our dividends are budgeted at $36 million for 2008, and that's based on 30% of the projected income for C&E. One of the things we did this year, which we have not done in the past, is we brought in the unappropriated Gen Fund carryover of $15 million. Now that number has increased since this budget was submitted to council, but at the time when we were doing our balancing, we had $15 million of unappropriated carryover. For motor fuels tax revenue, we generally base that on the previous 4 quarters actual. And then health third-party revenue, we have budgeted that at approximately $17 million. And that's quite an increase from where we are now, but that's taking into account the opening of the new Muskogee facility. Salary increases, 3% programmatic. Basically, what that means is each program from their funding sources, whether it be federal or tribal, budget 3% in their salary worksheets. And then we have a request from Gen Fund to create a 2% pool, and those funds would be dispersed according to the procedures and a merit process. For indirect cost, at the time we put these budgets together, we didn't have the 2007 rate, so we used a 2006 rate of 16.98. That will go down a little once we adjust, because our 07 rate is 16.1%. One of the items in your budget is a request for $6.5 million transfer from Gen Fund to cover fringe pool prior year deficits. And we've had, over the course of the last year, quite a few discussions in E&F about the fringe pool and the deficits that have been accumulating there, and it's primarily driven by our healthcare costs. Our healthcare costs have skyrocketed in the fringe pool over the last 4 years. By doing this, we would cover the fringe pool, bring it current, and it would help every program, because if we don't cover this deficit with Gen Fund, I have to keep raising the fringe rate, which impacts the limited pool of money that each of the programs have to work with. New initiatives, there are quite a few. We are very fortunate that Cherokee Nation has had a healthy discretionary revenue stream over the last few years. What I'm going to try to do is go through these and just give you a brief overview of what this means. The first one, improved health information and reporting for $150,000. Excuse me. That is some funds to help do some programming on the RPMS system, which is the IHS health system that our health clinics use. It's an older system, and it really needs to have some maintenance done to it. Self-help community buildings, that is just what it says. It's pretty self-explanatory. It would be to build several community buildings. Community planning, that budget is to assist different community organizations in setting up their organization, providing some technical assistance. The next one, community organization training and technical assistance. This basically is requesting discretionary dollars to replace the Compassion Capital Grant, which the tribe was fortunate enough to get a couple of years ago. That was a one-time grant. It is community-based. The Community Services Group works exclusively with community organizations, helps them get organized, helps them get set up, and provides a lot of technical assistance and training to them. Worksite wellness, that's a little bit of an increase over the wellness program that we currently have, and that will be an effort that's coordinated through our health services group and our HR group. The impact there could be very positive. If we can impact the workforce wellness, we can drive down our health claims costs. Listening to our elders. This is for a pilot program in Adair County. It would have weekly activities which would combine cultural knowledge, traditional practices, and utilizing the Cherokee language, and that would be to get our elders involved in helping to sustain the culture and language. Bright Futures, this is another cooperative proposal from our court system, working through the education group in the public school system. Basically, it's an advocacy program in the juvenile court system so that they can have a positive impact on these children rather than them ending up in juvenile court. Yes.
Callie, you may or may not be able to answer it, but if you can't, if you could get back to us. The district court came to us a couple weeks ago and did a report saying that they had lost their grant for the wellness court.
Yes.
And they said that they really had a need for about $160,000. Does this cover that, or is that something else altogether different?
I'll have to confirm, but I do believe it covers that because it is a kind of a continuation of the wellness court. But I will confirm that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Education data and development, that is a project to try to get better statistical data for all of our schools in all of the 14 counties. One of the things we talk about when we look across the citizenry in the 14 counties is we've got little snippets of information residing in different groups. So there will be an attempt to build a database that will start to capture a lot of this information in one centralized location. Tribal Works, this would be a pilot project to coordinate the efforts for individuals who receive cash assistance to incorporate sort of a self-help component. We would match up the individuals with we would match the individuals and whatever skills they have with various tribal offices and other labor-intensive areas to develop a process to connect those individuals with areas in need of workers. Employment and training retention, this is a career services initiative which would provide some employment and training for individuals who wouldn't necessarily qualify for the federal programs. C&E inspections, this is the Community Services Environmental Group. They are charged with doing some of the inspections at C&E facilities for environmental compliance, and they really didn't have a budget to do this sort of work, so that's what this request is for. Water planning, that is another environmental initiative, but also a tribal initiative to assert water rights, to assert the tribe's water rights, and that would be led by Janine Hale on both the environmental and the legal side. Cultural resources, that is a request. I actually had to go back and refresh my memory because we have a cultural resources budget. This is unique in that it's a request from the environmental group to go out and catalog a lot of the native plants and get a better database of plants that are culturally significant. Building structures and property maintenance. This is a request that we have actually, subsequent to when the 08 budget was put together, we have requested $250 in the 07 budget. What that is for is we have a lot of buildings that are not in what we call our internal space pool. For example, the courthouse, some of the new acquisitions that have been made for the last couple of years. We purchased the property, but we didn't set aside money to maintain them. Buildings that are in the space pool, that maintenance comes out of the space cost, but these structures did not have a budget to properly maintain them. So that would provide those funds. The courthouse, that is a request, that will be a capital request to replace the existing, or not replace it, but turn the courthouse downtown into a totally historical location and build a working courthouse for the court. The Veterans Center, that is a request to build a new building out here. I believe it's just to the east of the Veterans Memorial, and that would be a new building to be utilized by the Veterans Office. Right now, we have one guy who doesn't have any space to advise veterans if they come in needing assistance, so this would provide a new Veterans Center for them. Roads construction, this is a request for some discretionary dollars to build some roads on tribal property around in our area. We have a lot of roads projects that are funded through the BIA, but this is specifically to do some maintenance and upgrades around the complex here. Succession planning. This budget is a request to hire a second in each of our groups. We have group leaders who are responsible in each of the functional areas, but some of the areas don't really have what we call a second. So this budget would provide the funds to go out and recruit and hire the second in command, or the leaders who would be able to step into the group leader's shoes. Reserve for IDC negotiation. When we did our 2007 IDC proposal, we had several comments back, and we negotiated back and forth. But one of the things they told us is that for 2008, we will have to come up with a lot of additional justification for 3 areas to include them in the IDC pool. One being the Tribal Council. Currently, the Tribal Council is funded 1/2 from General Fund and 1/2 from IDC. There's an actual, I guess, opinion letter out there that the cognizant agency says tribal councils that should be a governmental expense, not indirect cost. So we're going to have to come up with a lot of additional justification to keep the council half funded with IDC. The other area is the principal chief's office. Same situation. They say that's a core government. That's a core government activity. So you're going to really need to justify to keep that in the pool. The third thing is our Justice Department. Our Justice Department is half funded from IDC. They do a lot of legal work for the programs. ICW is one of the big ones. Anyway, those 3 areas account for $1.9 million of our IDC pool expenses for 2008. And if we're not successful in negotiating that, to leave them in the pool, we would need tribal funds to make up for the cost there. Doug and I got into a discussion about, well, shouldn't this just be part of your contingency reserve? And to me, the contingency reserve that we're requesting is for the unknown. This is a known. This absolutely could happen. If it doesn't, if we're successful, we would do a budget mod to take that out as soon as we get through our negotiation process. Next item, electronic dental records. That is to upgrade all of the clinics that offer dental to a, I'm sure I won't use the right terminology, but basically you won't have the old film. It'll all be electronic. The dentist will take the x-ray and you see it right there on the screen. So that's $866,000 to upgrade those.
How is that money different from the, I don't know, back a slide or 2 on the electronic records? What's the difference in that?
Are you talking about the improved?
Yes.
The previous request was for the core. It's basically the billing system that they use, the RPMS system. This is specifically for dental records. It's for x-rays. It keeps a digital record for all of the patients that come in. Leadership curriculum. This is a request for funds for the education department to develop leadership curriculum for everyone. Leaders can be in kindergarten and younger, and they can be our elders. So the idea is to be able to provide some tools to help develop the leaders at all ends of the spectrum. Land acquisition, cultural tourism. This request would be to set aside $2 million to make strategic acquisitions of land related to cultural tourism projects. The land records digitization project, this is for our realty department. I didn't realize this until we were in the meetings to review all of this. Over in our real estate department, we have all of the original records for the allotments. There's a lot of historical records sitting over there, and even though we have them stored in a vault, they're still subject to aging, and we could lose a lot of our history there. And this process would put them all onto digital formats so that we could, it would be searchable, which would also help them when they're trying to do a probate or trying to help a citizen even just track back, where was my grandmother's allotment. This is a neat project, I think, that everyone would benefit from. Youth, yes ma'am?
How does that differ from the plants that they're building now over there of all the records?
The BIA, or, I'm sorry?
No, the Donaldson group has contracted the function to keep up well, in layman's terms, it would be a land plant. It's like an abstract office.
Mm-hmm. This is a key part of it, basically.
So they need more money for what they're already doing.
They have started this process, and it will take them, 10, 20 years at the current rate. And what this would do is provide some additional resources so that they can get it done within 12 to 18 months, I think, is the expectation there.
But it's not part of the contracted function with the Bureau?
I'm not sure I can answer that. I'll have to make a note and get Linda to call you. Okay. The next item, youth athletic leadership. This would be a pool of funds for athletic groups in the 14-county area to utilize. We get calls all the time. A small school can't afford the athletic equipment, and there would be some specific criteria to access it, kind of like our community youth grant that is administered by Cherokee First. This would be a source of funds for the athletic organizations to be able to supplement what the school just doesn't, or the parents maybe just don't have funds for. Computer upgrades for Talking Leaves. Talking Leaves has a really tight budget from the Department of Labor. They're in the 5th year of a 5-year contract. That contract, when it was negotiated, only allowed, I believe, 2.9% increase each year. So they've got a lot of old, outdated equipment over there, so they're requesting some discretionary funds to be able to do a one-time upgrade to all their computers. Community transportation. This would be funds to purchase 1 or 2 vans for community groups to utilize. They would be owned by the Cherokee Nation, but they would be available for community groups to access, to take on trips. Again, that would probably be administered through Cherokee First or the volunteer department. This is just to wake you up. This shows in a chart format all of the different funding sources that we have here at Cherokee Nation. As you can see, Cherokee Nation Tribal is 28%. I think last year was the first year that tribal revenue was our largest funding source, and it continues to be so for 2008. IHS is the next largest, and then we have a variety of state and federal grants, mainly federal. This is another comparison. This shows the growth in the funding sources over the last 6 years. As you can see, again, Cherokee Nation tribal funding has really soared. DOI has gone up significantly. Most of that is probably related to roads projects. We have seen some increase in our compact funding. And again, IHS has increased quite a bit, but for 08, a large part of that is related to the Muskogee project. This is a chart of the percentage of the budget for each of the groups. As you can see, health services is 30%. That's our largest group, followed by community services, education, human services. Our service groups probably account for about 50% or more of our budget. And this is just something I like to throw up each year to show you what Doug created back in, when did you write this report? 98. This is a summary of our revenues, transfers in, direct expenses, indirect expenses, transfers out, and then that net column, that represents either a surplus or a deficit. It's a little misleading on the fringe pool funding source. It appears there's a surplus, but there's really not, because we don't budget fund balance. It falls out as though it's a surplus, but it's to cover the prior year deficits. That's the transfer. That's the high-level overview. What I will do now is try to very quickly go through each of the groups. Each of the groups put together some information for me on what falls under their group, and like I said earlier, what I want to focus on are their balanced scorecards. The balanced scorecard is the tool we use to measure the outcomes, and linking the budget to the balanced scorecard, we're able to try to come up with a way to see if we're being efficient and putting our dollars to the right place. Health, of course, operates 8 outpatient clinics. We also have community health. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just like, so when you go through and you say that about the balanced scorecard, can you give us some examples of where our budget has either decreased or increased due to a balanced scorecard?
Okay.
Thank you.
Also under health, we have the group leader, clinical support services, and administrative support. The balanced scorecard, I'm not going to read each of the goals to you, but this is the information that health has put together on how to measure what their impact is. And to address Kara's question a little bit, I think probably what health has done over the last few years is to try to put as much money as they can into prevention. I mean, you have to treat people, you have to operate the clinics, but to really have an impact, if you put more dollars towards prevention, you're going to have a better long-term impact. One of the goals here, as you can see, is increased revenue to health programs. Health has been very successful over the last few years in increasing their what we call third-party revenue, which is insurance billings, Medicare, Medicaid, and that money goes right back into the health system to meet the needs. These are some of the new initiatives that we talked about earlier, and these are the ones that health will be responsible for implementing in 08 should the budget be approved. and that's the Community Recreation Center, Worksite Wellness, electronic dental records, and the improved health information and reporting. One of the things I asked them to do is give me the changes in staffing. Health has quite a large increase in staffing. Again, most of that is related to opening the Muskogee Clinic. Some of the other major changes you'll see in the health budgets is with the clinic construction winding down, the 08 budget is significantly less than it was in 06 and 07. And then the Muskogee Clinic operational budget is around $10 million. Budget summary. This is a summary of where they get their money. Most of it is from IHS, third-party revenue, but they have been quite successful in going out and getting specific grants, particularly in the community health initiatives and the diabetes grant, which we've had for several years now, that provides a lot of funding specifically for diabetes. This one, I won't even try to get you to read because I can't read it from here, but this is education, and these are the various groups that fall under education. The Executive Director, Childhood Development, Sequoia High School, Higher Ed, which of course is the scholarship programs, Cherokee University, and Distance Ed, Culture, JOM program, and Learn and Serve. I apologize, this is totally not readable, but I'll get you a hard copy of it. This is the education group's balanced scorecard, and I have a copy here that I'll try to just read a couple of them to you to give you an idea. The first objective is refine and expand the language instruction with emphasis on technology. How are they going to measure that? By how many computer labs that they've installed the Cherokee language program on. The target is for 2010, 1 computer lab at the complex and 3 labs in public schools. For 2008, it's to have the computer program in the syllabary completely ready to go. These, again, are some of the new initiatives that we talked about earlier that are falling under the education group. Some of the staffing changes are related to the new initiatives. Institutional co-op director, fine arts director, emphasis on leadership and arts and culture. Here is the summary for education. As you can see, they get quite a large chunk from federal compacts. The $14 million is all for Sequoia. Next largest is Cherokee Nation. That covers scholarships, the language initiative, the Cultural Resources Center. There's a lot of programs rolled under the education services. Commerce Department. Commerce operates a variety of programs geared at helping families learn to manage their money. They have a small business assistance center. They coordinate the national holiday. They have a one-stop business center, and they are also involved in the implementation of the cultural tourism plan. Their metrics are fairly straightforward in terms of their goals. Create 75 jobs through small business financing and technical assistance. This is jobs out in the community. The Commerce Group focuses on helping the small community businesses get established and grow. They've had quite a few successes over the last couple of years. Provide financial literacy training to 2,000 youth. They offer at several locations financial literacy training. One of the best programs they have is the individual development accounts, where this is available for youth but also for adults. You put in $1 and you finish your training and you meet the different goals. The program puts in anywhere from 2 to 3 times what you put in at the end of the program. So it really helps to encourage saving. These are some of the highlights. Most of their programs are funded either with federal dollars or with private matching funds. They the Economic Development Trust Authority falls under the Commerce Department, so they operate a variety of loan programs as well as the other financial literacy training. Budget summary. A lot of this, when you look at the budget request, some of that is in the form of dollars that are being loaned out that eventually should result in a pool in a revolving loan fund rather than you're just spending money. Excuse me. Career services. A lot of their funding comes from what we call PL 102477, which is a Workforce Investment Act. They provide employment and training services for mainly adults, but they also work with youth. Career Services operates the summer work program. These are some of the basic skills and trainings they offer. A lot of times they get people in the door who don't know how to fill out a job application, so they spend a lot of time in employment counseling and assessing what this person's basic skills are so that they can point them towards the right training. Okay. Is that a sign? Technical assistance.
This is not one we plan.
Yes.
You got it.
Yes. What I brought over today, I'll give them to Gail. It's just a summary, but I'll get you the entire.
Thank you. Good man.
Your battery switched out.
Plug it in. Yeah.
That was not an intentional sabotage of her presentation.
She wanted to break.
Getting tired of the sound of my voice.
Would you like to sit for the rest of your presentation?
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. He sabotaged me. Is it raining?
Good to see you. Application for refugee. Look here.
That's a picture right there.
Yeah, you got it.
Someone's going to call me later on today, David Sutherland, and find out that process about the exemption and the wording of that.
So you
I didn't I didn't know I could talk that.
Yeah, Ms. Colby, that's, probably have some additional information from Sutherland. Hello, everybody.
I only heard the first.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started again.
Okay, as I was saying, these are some of the programs that are operated by Career Services. As I mentioned, the Summer Youth Employment Program, Employment Assistance, that ranges anywhere from vocational training, on-the-job training, direct employment. The Taro office also reports through Career Services, and the Cherokee Fire Dancer program operates under Career Services. They operate several literacy centers throughout the area. Basic skills, GED preparation. They have incorporated arts and crafts, traditional arts and crafts, life skills training, computer literacy, and after-school activities. Vocational rehabilitation works with a lot of the citizens on training and retraining. They get quite a lot of requests for, I've been hurt on my current job, I need to find something else I can do, so they have helped quite a few people there. The Resident Opportunities and Self-Sufficiency, this is a grant that they have gotten through HUD for the past several years. It kind of supplements the HOSDA funds that are allocated to Career Services, and they work with a lot of the housing additions throughout the 14 counties to provide some of the same types of services they provide with their other funding source. They also work with Commerce in the Mortgage Assistance Program by helping with the vocational training, getting people employed so that they can qualify for mortgage assistance. I used to know what NACTEP meant, but I won't even try. This is a grant they get through the Department of Ed. It helps with these different types of assessments and vocational training. Basically, Career Services focuses on vocational training, whereas education deals mainly with the higher ed scholarships and the kindergarten through 12. The Career Tech Grant, this is the tribal dollars that are put towards financial assistance for vocational scholarships. Career Services also is responsible for Talking Leaves, Job Corps. I think most of you are familiar with Talking Leaves. It's been with the nation for many, many years, and has received several awards from DOL as one of their best run Job Corps centers. This is the balanced scorecard for Career Services. They focus a lot on jobs and how are you going to contribute to those jobs. These are, one of the big ones there is how many individuals enter unsubsidized employment after completing one of the programs. And the goal for 2008 is 400 individuals. New initiatives, the retention that we talked about earlier. It would provide 2 intake clerks to free up some of the other staff to concentrate on retention activities. The Tribal Works, which is the matching of individuals to their skills to areas that need assistance around the tribe. One of the areas that has impacted career services is the decreasing federal dollar for classroom training, PL 102477. Their DOI funds are pretty well flatlined. This is a summary of the budget request for career services. The largest source of funding is Department of Labor, which is for the Job Corps. I didn't notice this until just now. They're calling it Strategic Budgeting Committee. That's tribal dollars. And then they have a variety of other grants. Human Services operates general assistance, elder services, food distribution. And of course, the Children, Youth, and Family Services, more commonly known as ICW, but there's more under that group than ICW, but adoption, foster care, the youth shelter, the child care and development centers, and also the Office of Veterans Affairs. New in 2007 is the Office of Child Support. You may have seen the press release that came out recently where Cherokee Nation collected the first child support for a Cherokee child, and this is a new program that I know Norma Merriman is extremely excited about, and it should have a very positive impact. One of the new initiatives Human Services has is Early Childhood State Pilot Project, and this is a comprehensive project to provide health, mental health, and education services. And the other new initiative, as I mentioned, is the Child Support Enforcement. A continuing initiative is the Mays County Meth Prevention Project. This is, I believe, 2008 will be the 3rd year for this project, and it's a coordinated effort between the Marshal Service, the Substance Abuse Group that falls under Health, and Human Services, and they're doing a coordinated effort as a pilot project to really make an impact on meth prevention. This is a brief summary of the funding sources for Human Services. Community Services. These are the groups that fall under Community Services: Community Development, Community Youth, Planning, Roads, and Engineering and Sanitation Facilities. The balanced scorecard for Community Services, one of their big focuses is promoting partnerships with community organizations, and as a measure they have set a goal of 8,500 staff hours for training and technical assistance. Sub-award $850,000 to communities to help them get established, get them up and running. 5 communities with master plans complete, and 5 documented partnerships with local government and nonprofit agencies. The goal with these community organizations is to help them get going, help them learn how to write grants, and eventually the organizations can become self-sufficient because they will qualify for all sorts of nonprofit. Some of the highlights, I think this body has heard about the Kenwood Lagoon for a long time. There's been some special emergency funds put towards that. This request that is in your budget is to provide, hopefully, what will be a once-and-for-all solution to that. Mentioned earlier the C&E inspections. Home ownership building packages. This is to provide building packages for self-help construction. Coordinating, that's the helping the communities get set up, monitoring how their organization is operating and providing assistance. The community transportation, that's to purchase the 2 vans that would be available for communities to utilize. Community planning and self-help buildings, community training and assistance. As you can see, there's a big focus on getting out into the communities and helping them become active and have a good, strong community organization. These are the funding sources. A lot of the funds come from HUD, from DOI. The roads budget there is $39 million. That's every project that we've been funded for. Realistically, we're not going to spend that, but we always budget the full amount. Environmental programs. These are some of the areas that fall under the environmental programs of the nation. A lot of the activity is funded through the EPA, water and air monitoring, Superfund, underground storage tanks. They really run the full gamut of environmental activities. The balanced scorecard, basically helping the communities by providing some technical assistance related to environmental, and getting out and testing the water and air. Partnerships with communities on environmental issues, water rights. Budget highlights, they're not requesting any new FTEs. Filling vacant positions as needed. No major changes from 2007. And as I mentioned, a lot of their funding comes from EPA in the form of grants. Government relations. This group works with city, county, state, federal, and other tribes to coordinate partnerships, the relationship between the Cherokee Nation. These are some of the new initiatives. Water planning, cultural resource, math training. I'm sorry, I doubled up there. Okay, now we're back to the city, state, county relations. Monitor state legislation to make sure that there's not a negative impact on Cherokee Nation. These are the goals for government relations group. Try to get pro-Indian candidates elected. Make sure all of our boards and commissions are filled. Working on the delegate to Congress. Federal relations, working very closely with the Washington office, keeping an eye on the pulse of Washington. Tribal relations works with other tribes in trying to build coalitions and consensus. Get out the vote. This is a project we've had for the last several years where we make selective contributions to political candidates. In fact, I think there's a subcommittee meeting this afternoon to look at the proposed contributions for '07. Washington office, we do maintain a Washington office with, I believe, right now we only have one permanent employee and several interns just rotated through there. All of our government relations activities are funded through Gen Fund, and these are the amounts in the '08 budget request. And get out the vote, $500,000. Management resources. Todd leave. Oh. I'll carry on then, I guess. I'll just, he'd talk longer than I would. And this is Mr. Enlow's group. He's got a very diverse group here. He has acquisition management, which is purchasing and contracts, information systems, facilities management, risk management, natural resources, support services, which is the warehouse. This is a balanced scorecard for the management resources group. Some of this you will see is very numbers oriented, develop local economy. And one of the metric we're using there for this group is acquisition management. How many dollars did we spend with local vendors? Customer satisfaction. A lot of metrics within this group. Some of the highlights: building structures and property maintenance, land acquisition for cultural tourism, the courthouse, Veterans Center, roads construction, community housing. There's also a few reductions on projects that were completed. One of the things when you're looking at the management resources budget, a lot of their individual budgets are project oriented. It's a one-time funding, and this is one of the things that Doug and I have had conversations, and I've had conversations with some of the council members over the years. I think we need to develop a project budget system rather than rolling it into our operational budget. I think it distorts and confuses what we're looking at here when you put $35 million in to build a clinic one year and the next year it's gone. It makes it difficult to compare apples and apples. So that would be one of my goals for the next year, is to come up with a plan to make the budget process really an operational budget and then a capital/project budget. Human resources. These are the groups that fall under human resources: admin and employee relations, employment, compensation and benefits, and the Office of Educational Development, and something. The balanced scorecard for this group. Recruitment activities. Some of the jobs that we have here at Cherokee Nation are extremely difficult to recruit for. Dentists, doctors, even I think there was an opening in the roads department for quite some time for civil engineering or something like that. But we have a lot of diverse jobs here at Cherokee Nation. Some of them are extremely difficult to recruit for. So human resources is going to be focusing on that a lot more. The other things they measure are turnover and the vacancy rates. Human Resources has had a pretty tight, flat budget for the last several years. In 2008, they are requesting 2 additional analysts and 1 records clerk. The history course budget falls under Human Resources. The recruitment budget, as I mentioned, also a new initiative for Human Resources for 2008 is a compensation analysis, and basically the market survey, but also reviewing all of the salary structures to see if we're still in line. And that's a breakdown of their budget request. Financial Resources. Basically, we provide the financial support for all the groups within the nation. Our balanced scorecard measures, these are the very high-level measures. Each of our departments have departmental goals, even down to the individual goal. What we try to do is show each of the individuals how they contribute to the overall goal. First and foremost, on unqualified audit opinion. No reportable conditions on the single audit. Implementation of SAS 112, it's a bit of a misnomer. It's not so much as an implementation as a preparation. SAS 112 is a new audit standard that applies to us for 2007. So we are in the process of reviewing all of our internal controls, trying to make sure that we have everything documented so that we don't get any reportable conditions in 2008. Received the GFOA award, and then that all reports are completed and submitted by the due dates. New initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, $6.5 million for the fringe pool deficits. The succession planning budget falls under Financial Resources, and that's just a holding spot for it until the plan is complete, and then the funds would be distributed to the groups in a future budget mod. Core Financial Resources staffing is flat. Most of the funds, the funds for Financial Resources Group operationally are indirect cost. Gen Fund, these are the primary items within that, the succession planning, contingency reserves, that's the $3 million contingency reserve, plus $1.9 million for IDC negotiations, cash match for grants, IDC shortfall, that's different than the $1.9 million reserve. We have 2 fairly large programs that don't pay full IDC. One is Job Corps and the other is Sequoia High School. So we calculate and include in the budget request the difference between the rate that they pay and whatever our approved rate is. The fringe pool, $6.5 million, and Treasurer's Office, $176,000. We're almost to the end, guys. Tax Commission, we have motor vehicles, and then we also have revenue and taxation, which is primarily the tobacco tax. Balanced scorecard, a lot of theirs is driven towards increasing revenue because increased revenue results in increased allocations for schools. And another big push has been to improve customer satisfaction. One of the notes here is if we get an approved tobacco compact in 2008, we'll need to come back probably and request a few dollars to do some software changes. Revenues are expected to increase for both motor vehicles and tobacco tax. The major expenditure increases are for salaries and wages, communication, A lot of that is related to the satellite office. They've got the T1 lines going between here and the satellite offices, and then they make an awful lot of copies. This is a summary of their expenditure and revenue increases. Largest increase is due to proposed new staff. I apologize. I've jumped all the way to Gaming Commission. The Gaming Commission is requesting a fairly large increase in their budget. And as I'm sure you're aware, the Gaming Commission has grown as our gaming operations have grown. So most of their funds are related to the staff. Number of background investigations and compact machine activity. Their focus is probably increasing to cover all of the things that statutorily our Gaming Commission is responsible for: the facilities, environmental, public health, safety. And then they're required to do the background investigations on all the employees. And that concludes my overview. I did make note of a couple of questions, and I will get those answers for you when we reconvene.
Ms. Kelly, are there any questions of Kelly? Record time, less than an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yes.
I don't know if it's addressed to Kelly or not, but Kelly, is there a way that we could take a look at the 07 scorecards and see how they come out and what was projected for 07? I'd be curious to see that.
Well, we could go back to 2006,
Okay.
but 2007 is still,
Completed,
yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Watts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I'm going to have lots of questions about education, but I'm just trying to get my thoughts together and get those to you because some things I'd expected I don't think are in it, but I can't tell by the breakout. I'm going to try to dig again before. But just expect that I'll have questions about education.
Okay. And over the next couple of days, I will call the group leaders. I've asked them to make themselves available if there are questions that I can't answer, which I'm sure there will be. So what we've done in the past is Doug does his overview, and sometimes during that overview, questions come up, and I can call people and get them over here in just a few minutes to answer questions.
Mr. President?
Mr. Chair, Kelly, instead of the 06, when will the 07 budget be completed?
We won't be reporting until October on the final.
I was just thinking.
There's quarterly, but, okay, you want to wait on the 07? Okay. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Then, if Doug doesn't want to start his presentation, which is actually scheduled for tomorrow, I propose that we recess until 1:30 tomorrow afternoon.
I'd recess till 1:30 tomorrow afternoon.
That is pending the approval of item 14 on the agenda that combines the committees. If that doesn't pass, then it's until Wednesday morning. Is that clear? We have item 14 on the agenda for the full council meeting tonight that merges the Language and Cultural Committee with the Education Committee and the Employment Committee with the Rules Committee. Those are both scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. So if that should fail tonight, then we would have those two committees tomorrow afternoon rather than budget hearings. But it's not expected to fail, but pending.
That's good, thank you.
Is that clear? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're recessed until tomorrow at 1:30.